Okay, so let's say you have decided that you're going to sell the house.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what's involved in selling a house during a divorce that's different from a typical home sale?
So when I work with clients who are in the process of getting divorced, most of the time, one individual is still living in the house, one is not. But what I do is I set the ground rules from the very start. And when I say ground rules, I mean when I communicate with one of you, the other person is also getting the same message. And a lot of times it's in a group text. So you guys are getting it from me at the exact same time. I am not having one conversation with partner A and then a completely different conversation with partner B when it comes to the house that you are selling. I've had situations where I was brought in to help sell a home for two individuals who were getting divorced. And one of them decided to use me for buying the next house, but the other person said, no, I want to keep that separate. I'm going to go get a different realtor. And that was 100% fine. Yeah. So when I say ground rules, for me, it's about what's fair for everybody in this situation. My goal is to get each of you as much money as possible out of the transaction and to make your life as easy as possible during the process. Selling a house is not easy.
Yeah.
It's hard and it's emotionally taxing. And it's stressful, especially if you are living in the house and showing it and people are coming through it, and it's a lot. So I set those ground rules up like right from the very start. The other piece that I tend to have a conversation with, what is your lowest number that you both are willing to accept? You know, because it could be a situation where partner A just wants it done and over with so they can move on with their life. And partner B needs a little more time and wants more money, you know, so they want to put like some effort into the house. They want to get top dollar, you know, so they have very different priorities.
Yeah.
Okay, well, then we need to agree on a timeline and we need to agree on what your bottom line number is. And I'm not saying we're going to start at that number. I'm going to say that's our worst case scenario number. So having those conversations up front, I think is very helpful because it's one less piece of contention between the two parties. And the more that I can eliminate or lower the conflict, the better for everybody.
Yeah. I remember, if I could just share my story, when my husband told me he wanted to get a divorce, he already had a realtor lined up to come in like 3 days after he dropped that bomb on me, and I was not ready. It didn't matter. I mean, and our realtor was so good. She she felt so bad for me. I just remember as she's showing, you know, she's taking a tour of our house, and I actually just slumped against the wall and sank down in a pole. I usually am really in control of my emotions, and I was not. It was too soon for me. And we did not have that conversation about what was the lowest we would accept. And it did become a contention point because I wanted to get more out of the house. And this was in 2014. So it still wasn't a great market. So my husband was like, you know, if anybody gives us a decent offer, I want to take it, without defining what a decent offer was.
Yeah.
And I was like, first of all, I want to stay here as long as I can. I mean, just from my point of view, it's like, I'm not in a rush to do this.
Yeah.
And I want to wait until we can get more out of it. And it took us 10 months to sell that house.
Yeah.
And we sold it for exactly what we bought it for. And I was not happy about that. But, you know, it's like, it's time to move on. And at that point, I kind of was ready to do that. But I think I love that you take the time to get that set straight up before the process begins.
Yeah, knowing when I come in what the priorities are for each person and then where those priorities meet, because very rarely do they meet, right? Very rarely do they both have the exact same priority, right? So it's finding where that overlap is and then trying to work with each one and showing it. You fight over a lot of things when, you know, you could fight over a lot of things when it comes to a divorce. And that's, if I can take one thing off of your plate that you're not going to fight about or that you're going to have just a regular conversation with, you know, that's fine. Now, there have been instances of situations where I was involved in where the partners were like, yeah, that's fine. Like, okay, no problem. You go with that? You go with that? Yeah, we're good. And it's just like, got along super well, and they just knew it was the right decision. But if you're in a situation that's really contentious and you have to sell a house, I would say get a realtor who's going to be straight and transparent with both of you, have the group text messages set up, and make sure that everybody's on the same page in terms of priorities and bottom line number.
Just aside, when I do mediation, it's the same thing. It's like if you are emailing me, it better be CC'd to the other person too. I will always respond to both of you too, for transparency reasons, because you don't ever want somebody to feel like you're taking one side over the other.
No.
And it's really, even if it's not a contentious divorce, it's still not a happy thing.
No.
And I know that you're well aware of this too, and you've already alluded to it, but sometimes one person has been planning a divorce for a year or so. Like they've been planning their exit strategy, and maybe the other person has no clue.
Yeah.
And then, I tell my clients, I said, it's nobody ever wakes up on a Tuesday morning and just casually says, oh, I think I'd like to see what divorce is like. There's a lot of pain that has led up to this point. But some people still are caught by surprise because they're like, oh, we'll work through it, or they're unaware that there's been an affair going on in the background. Yeah, that was my case. I didn't know what was going on. And so people can have a lot on their plate, emotion-wise, and then selling a house on top of that. Can just be like, please, make this as easy as you can.
And it could be the other way around too, where you're the one who has been planning it for a long time, and your partner, your soon-to-be ex-partner, feels a little blindsided. Remember to give them that time to kind of adjust as well.
Yeah, you have to. I think having a realtor come in like 3 days after he dropped the bomb on me was probably a little soon.
That's a lot.
Because I wasn't able to regulate my emotions at that point.
That's a lot.
It was okay, and she was fantastic. I have nothing but good things to say for her, and I just feel bad for her that she had to see me in that state. And at one point, I think somebody suggested that I smudge the house with sage it to get rid of all of the bad feelings that were lingering around. So there's lots that goes into that. I know.